China has a very clear appetite for commodities. They consume such a large quantity of different commodities that they must import at an ever-expanding rate. They are seeking more and more from different countries, and quite frankly, in a long-term scenario, this is bullish for all commodities that they are importing. Let's take a look at what China has been up to. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Take a look at China's staggering demand for commodities. Half or more of all steel, copper, coal, nickel, and cement goes there. You can see those numbers on the right-hand side. They are quite staggering. On the left-hand side, you're seeing the fact that they have 19% of the population and 15% of the GDP. A lot has changed in China over these past few decades, that's for certain. Look at these commodities here and understand that as these percentages increase, as the amount required increases, that's bullish. That's very bullish for these, whether it's industrial commodities, whether you're looking at the agricultural commodities or anything else. Okay, look at this. A chart form of what we had just seen. You can see the percentages as well as the source they are coming from if you're interested. Looking at, for example, rice, looking at things like gold. These are things that China is importing every single day, and it is expanding in all categories. China's demand greater than the world. There are 5 particularly interesting commodity categories here, and in all of them, China's demand equals or exceeds that of the rest of the world combined. Understand that China is engaging in the most massive public works projects that the world has ever seen. And if they are to do that, they are going to need cement, nickel, steel, copper, and coal, among other things as well. So you can see how they've been importing, they've been consuming like crazy, especially over the past, let's say, 10 or 20 years, when we have seen things that the world literally has never seen before. China continues to gobble up the world's commodities, setting new records for consumption of everything from crude oil to soybeans. In a year of flux marked by industrial capacity cuts, environmental curbs, and financial deleveraging, demand for raw materials has continued to grow in the world's biggest consumer, helping drive a second annual gain in global commodity returns. So there's more information here, but let's cover some of the charts that we have. Give me more. China imported more than 1 billion tons of iron ore again in 2017 to hit a new record. Lo and behold, increasing every single year. Of course, that's probably not going to stop anytime soon. Heavy metal buying. China's copper concentrate imports notch yet another record. Okay, same deal here. And obviously, the amount that they are needing is just going to continue to rise as long as these public works projects take place. New crude king. China surpassed the US as the world's biggest oil importer in 2017. Can you believe it? They thought that this would never happen. But here it is. China importing more than the US. Now, some would say that perhaps shale has some hand in this, perhaps some tensions that have been happening around the world. Either way, they have been importing more. You can see this here. Looking at growing gas imports, China shipped in a record amount of natural gas in 2017 amid anti-pollution efforts. So once again, another commodity. Big appetite. Nation's soy imports to feed hogs far exceed other countries. Look at that. Just look at 97 million metric tons versus the rest of the world. Now, they're saying that this is specifically for hogs, but I know for a fact that China imports a lot of their soy from the US. So they're buying from the US probably to feed to the hogs. I'm not sure, but either way, they have to import from the US a commodity that they generally consume a lot of. Now, Look at this. Percentage of Chinese population living in absolute poverty. Back in 1990, of course, for some of us here, that wasn't that long ago, 66%. That would be 700 plus million people living in absolute poverty. In 2013, it's 1.9%, 25 million people. So a lot has changed. If you think about this, a lot has changed. Sure, when you compare it to the overall population, there's still, a lot to go, but it's 1.9%, and they're definitely making headway, that's for sure. Now, absolute poverty is a term that, there are still many, many people in poverty. That's a fact. However, that bar has been lifted to some degree. And looking at this here, the world has 100 people over the last 2 centuries. And essentially, things have changed. You could see that more people today are educated. There's less extreme poverty. More people living in a democracy. And other things, literacy and other topics. But essentially, we can see that more and more people are moving from the rural areas and they're moving into the cities. This is a major trend in China over the past little while. Very clear. As a result, that puts more of a strain on the farmers, more of a strain on the miners, more of a strain on everything, because no longer are people basically taking care of themselves. They are living in a city, they work in some sort of industry, and they need to go to the store to buy their food. They don't grow their own food. They need to get everything from stores. They need to go to the different shops and do things differently. Life is different. So that's a big change. And we're not talking about small percentages or even medium percentages here. We're talking about large amounts of people moving from the rural areas, the farmlands, and moving into these big cities, major metropolis areas that are millions and millions and millions of people, and that changes things definitely. So the appetite for commodities such as oil, maybe they're no longer riding their bicycle around, maybe they're driving a car, maybe they're taking public transport. So these things change, obviously, the way things are done. Think about if they're going to build a skyscraper, all the cement that's required, all the steel that's required, the copper, and so on. These are commodities that need to be consumed, need to be used. And China, very, very clear here, as I've shown you, they are consuming at continuing to increase their pace. So as long as they are continuing to do that, we can see that that's going to put more and more of a strain on the, as I said, farmers, miners, and everything else. So keeping, that in the back of your mind. Now I just want to switch gears a little bit. Think about the amount that, the more people that are in cities, ultimately, the more of a demand it puts onto these particular countries. Because the governments can't pay these different social assistance programs and everything. Look at this. Public social spending as a percentage of GDP. You can see where the US is here in this list. And I couldn't even find China. Now, maybe it just doesn't include China, but I don't even see it here. You look at areas of Europe, clearly at the top of the list here. Massive pensions that they need to pay out. You're seeing ultimately a huge burden on these countries. I don't think they'll ever be entirely paying out on all of this that they've promised. Per capita government spending on healthcare, 2012. U.S. ranks near the top of the list here. Very clearly, I'm surprised that Canada isn't further up on the list, but either way, you'll see different countries, Europe, again, high up here. And once again, I'm just quickly reading through. I don't see China here either. Even Russia made it to the list, low on the list. general government expenditure on health as a percentage of total government expenditure. So you can see, once again, US near the top of the list. So one of the things that we need to understand is the way that particular countries do business. Are they consuming and not outputting? We don't see that with China. We see them really engaging. The engine is definitely moving. We could see them exporting a lot all around the world. They are using that to buy up these different foreign exchange treasuries in the US, for example, manipulating their currency, keeping it weak. That keeps it good for exports, and they can keep this cycle going. It's working very well for them for the foreseeable future. I don't think anything's going to change. I think they're going to continue to do this. Of course, along the way, there's going to be turmoil. There's going to be periods of time when they see downfalls, when they see recessions, when they see lack of growth. It's just going to happen. All countries face it. But in the longer term, they are definitely partnering up with Russia. They are going around the world and seeking more partners, more money, more business, more investments. So it's very wise for them to seek partners around the world. Definitely. So that's all for this video. If you found it informative, please give me a thumbs up. When you give me a thumbs up, it helps to support the channel. So of course, I do appreciate that very much. And last but not least, if you found this video informative, I know you'll find my books, The Money GPS, and my newer release, Global Economic Collapse, even more informative. You can flip through these books at Amazon. There are links in the description below. Take care.